with literacy and access for all. They have a presentation about the work of Access Books Bay Area to bridge the gap in school library collections, facilities, and staffing between schools in more affluent areas and schools in high poverty areas caused by the lack of state funding for school libraries. The mission of Access Books Bay Area is to level the literacy playing field for K-8 students living in poverty, I lost my place, and transform a school library space that invites students to spend time and read. Amanda Collins, MLIS, let's see, Master in Library
Information Science.
Joined Access Books in 2015 and founded the Bay Area chapter in 2016. As a school librarian herself, Amanda is excited to be bringing the valuable work of Access Books to schools in need in the greater San Francisco Bay Area. Amanda holds a BA in History from UC Santa Barbara, I'm a UC Santa Barbara mom, and a Master's in Library and Information Science from UCLA, in addition to being a fully accredited teacher librarian. Linda Forrester is an Access Books Bay Area board member and project coordinator. Linda is passionate about reading and educational opportunity equality, which led her to Access Books Bay Area. Linda has been an active volunteer at her children's school for the past 15 years while raising her two children to be avid readers, philanthropists, and caring global citizens. Wow, they sound like future potential Rotarians. Please welcome Linda and Amanda.
We'll just sort of awkwardly stand here, and I'll advance the slides. But
okay, so thank you very much for inviting us to speak. We're really excited to get to know you and the wonderful things you guys are doing for the community. It's great. Thank you. We're excited to share what we're doing at Access Books Bay Area, and please help yourself to brochures, business cards. There's a sign-up sheet if you want to join our mailing list, email list. We'll not overwhelm you, but we'll keep you up on what we're doing, and pass on the information to friends, family, whoever might be interested, people working in low-income schools.
all right, great. So as was mentioned, my name is Amanda Collins, and a little bit about how I got involved in this. As a child, I actually grew up in Northern California, in Davis, California. And I was one of a small group of Davisites who was living in poverty. My family could afford to live in Davis because we got assistance from the government, basically. My mom had 5 kids, and that was her job. And there wasn't a man consistently in the picture making any other money. So we got by, but we didn't have a lot of luxuries in life. And for me, this really is fundamentally true, that books did change my life as a child growing up in poverty. I didn't travel until I was an adult. I didn't really leave Davis other than our yearly camping trip up to the Redwoods. So for me, I saw the world through books, and I experienced some of what could be available to me and got ideas about what I could do with my life because I read. So books really fundamentally changed my life. And I never would have had the life that I did if I didn't read. And the school library in particular was super important for me as a child because my mom wasn't buying us books at home, and we didn't have access to transportation to get to the public library that was too far away, so the library at school was my haven. I read one entire section of the elementary school library, the 398.2 section. I was super into mythology and folk tales and fairy tales. It's all in that section. I read every single book that was in our library in that section as an elementary school student, and then I went to junior high school and read the entire teen romance section. That was a phase, But libraries, they were very important to me, which is why I do what I do with Access Books Bay Area. So here in California, and this wasn't so much the case when I was a kid, and it wasn't so much the case in Davis, where education is very valued and people really invest in schools, but in California, there's no dedicated funding for school libraries. Now, what that means isn't that school libraries don't get funded. What it means is that the state doesn't give any specific money that should go to school libraries. So schools make choices about where the state money does go. And if a school is underfunded and they're already struggling just to keep their class sizes low and to maintain basic staffing like a nurse and a psychologist, they don't choose to put that money into the school library. So we have a lot of school libraries in California that haven't been funded in decades. That means no money for new books, very limited staffing, no money to update the facilities at all, and so we end up with school libraries that are repositories of both materials that kids aren't interested in because they're too old or they're too beat up, and also they're just really unattractive spaces that don't inspire kids to read. This is a smattering of books that we've actually taken out of school libraries. The Video Revolution book and the Careers with the Record Company book actually came both from an elementary school in East Palo Alto. So like, you know, less than a mile away from the Facebook campus. This is what kids are being told about technology in their school library. Yeah. And the USSR book, that's from when it was called the USSR. It's not like a historic retrospective, just FYI.
The Reagan administration.
Right, yes, exactly. Now, as you can imagine, kids especially, I know we're not supposed to do this, but we all do it, and kids are worse than even adults. We all judge books by the cover, right? We can all admit to it. Kids especially judge books by the cover. Lots of studies have been done actually about like e-content versus hardcover books. Kids still prefer hardcover books because they're so visual. And like e-content, it's a lot harder to get a picture of like, what is this book about? They can't just open it up and flip through it. So for little kids especially, like books are really still where it's at, and they're probably gonna continue to be where it's at. Those books don't make anybody wanna pick up a book and read. And especially not kids who don't have books at home, so they aren't already readers. And kids who maybe don't consider themselves to be a reader yet, for whatever reason. So what we need in school libraries is books that are going to inspire kids to be like, ooh, that looks really cool, I want to open it and read it. And that's not what these kids have. So this is a pretty typical school library facility that we work with. This is a Bay Area school library. The school library that I went to when I was working with Access Books down in Southern California in South Central looked a lot worse than this. This actually doesn't look that bad. It looks like they've got tons of books, right? Like you look at the shelves and you're like, wow, they've got great books. The average age of those books was 1993. Oh. Now for me, I was a teenager in the 90s and I'm like, oh, that's not that long ago, right? Yeah. But for a kid that was born in 2010, 1993 was a really long time ago. So the vast majority of those books are not things that those kids want to read. And then there's so many of these old books that haven't gotten cleared out that then kids can't even find the nicer stuff that they do want to read. So it's kind of a self-reinforcing cycle. So why bother investing in school libraries? I mean, we've got the internet, right? Who needs books? Being sarcastic, of course. So first, children who read for pleasure, and study after study has shown that they are more likely to succeed, period, across the board. They get better grades, not just in their reading and English classes, across the board. Children who read for pleasure, and this isn't children who are forced to read in class. This is children who choose to read outside of class, who read for pleasure. That's what libraries are all about. They do better on standardized tests. It turns out that every single standardized test, whether it's a reading test or not, is a reading test. The math section is a reading test. The science section is a reading test. If you are not a good reader, you won't do well, period. So becoming a pleasure reader is what will make you a better reader, and kids who read for pleasure do better, and because they do better, they get into better colleges, and they generally just have better life outcomes. There have been longitudinal studies, people who read for pleasure and people who don't. And it turns out that like I said, children still like books, right? The internet isn't replacing it. Books are wireless, and they have infinite battery life. They're colorful. You can take them home and share them with your family and then bring them back. You don't have to worry about breaking the screen, right? And if it's a library book, they're also free, which is very important. And school libraries matter. Children in low-income households often don't have access to books at home, like we mentioned in my own case, and transportation to public libraries isn't always safe or reliable or available. So often there's school library for the kids who most need intervention because they don't have the benefit of having parents who are bringing books into the house or who are pushing reading on them from a very young age. The kids who most need our help are the ones with the worst school libraries. And a robust school library program with high quality books that get kids interested in reading has been shown to improve academic achievement through the entire school. So that's the situation that we're in. In fact, high quality school libraries are one super important factor that can actually mitigate the academic effects of poverty. And there aren't a whole lot of things that can do that. So we have this short video. This was produced by Women in Film of Los Angeles in conjunction with Access Books in Southern California. It kind of speaks very eloquently to what we are about. The sound is just coming from my computer, so if we're all really quiet, we may be able to hear it.
What is your favorite book?
I have a lot of favorite books. Captain Underpants Store. Is Peter Rabbit. Nancy. It's like the goats on like wheels, and Underpants hold special gadgets. They were having pancakes, then they twirl like this. Good job! The bird goes away. It goes back with the yellow bird. And then what? And the ball hits a blue. And at the end, he said, Mr. Scary! Mr. Scary!
No favorites. How about just any book you've ever read?
Marguerite.
The greatest predictor of literacy for children in poverty is the quality of their school library. It's on us to help. Donate, start a book drive, or volunteer at accessbooks.net.
So that's our raison d'etre, right? Like why we do what we do, why we even exist. And then Linda's going to talk to you guys a little bit more about what we have actually done here in the Bay Area to help to solve this issue.
Okay. All right, so now that you know what the problem is that we're focused on, I'd like to talk about what we've accomplished so far. So to date, we've transformed 6 low-income elementary and middle schools in the Silicon Valley area, serving approximately 3,000 students, roughly 90% of whom are living at or below the poverty line. We have 2 more projects in the works for this fall, bringing our total up to 8. With increased funds, we aspire to complete another project in the spring of 2020 to round out our 2019-20 school year. So this slide shows an example of what we mean when we say we have transformed a school library. Libraries in our project schools have been neglected for so long that we initially find them in a cluttered, disorganized, and unattractive state.
Or super barren.
Yeah,
like this
that's
one.
coming next. Or some, like this one, are bare and institutional. They were transferring libraries. This is in East Palo Alto. And we didn't have anything at that point. After we do our project, the end result is warm, organized, and welcoming library, a place where children and teachers want to spend time.
That's the same.
So that's the same library in the Ravenswood School District in East Palo Alto. All right, so by far the most important impact we have is through improving the relevance and the quality of the books in the school library. We attractively display the new books with some of the covers facing forward, like this slide, like you would see in a nice bookstore. And for younger kids especially, it's so much more helpful for them to pick out a book versus looking at a jam-packed roll of spines. You know, they're visual. All right, so to accomplish this, our staff goes into the libraries before our project and train and work alongside volunteers to clear out the oldest and least relevant books, which you saw earlier, right? By the way, Video Revolution, I think we've seen in every school so far. That is like a very common, 90s book. And they haven't updated it because they don't have the money. We generally pull out between 1,000 and 1,500 of the least relevant books, or the oldest books, or the most torn books, because again, if the book's falling apart, it's not going to be chosen.
Or if it smells bad,
Yeah.
the pages are yellow, or all of the above.
Yeah.
Forget about it.
They're not going to be. And this makes room for the new books, and so it's not so cluttered. We've donated thousands of brand new hardcover library quality books to school libraries. And that's where Amanda, being a librarian, she has access to those, and at a lower price than shopping on Amazon, and again, the higher quality. In addition to being new, interesting, and durable, these books are specifically tailored to the needs and the demographics of the individual school and its community. The principal of this school in particular, Dorsa Elementary, said, "I appreciate Access Books staff's intentionality in selecting current books as well as books that are culturally relevant to our students." Because that's missing. I mean, before that, it's a bunch of 1990s kids. They're all white, and a lot of these schools have children of color, and it's nice to read about someone that looks like you. All right, along with the new books we purchased, we also purchased the processing materials, such as the barcodes, spine labels, and digital records for the library system. So the books are going to be ready to check out on the next school day. Since these schools tend to not have library staff, we found through trial and error that that's really important. Otherwise, they're just going to sit on the shelf in a box and not get out. Besides the brand new books we purchase for the library, we also donate gently used books for the classrooms. We do this by partnering with service organizations who will do book drives for the gently used books, and this has enabled us to donate over 12,000 gently used books to the classroom libraries at the schools where we've done our projects. And it helps our goal to get books into the hands of students any way we can.
I mentioned this to Jeannie, but I was a classroom teacher for many years, and classroom teachers have to buy all of their classroom library books out of their own pocket. So this is an especially important part of what we do, because if they are working in a low-income district, they aren't making enough money really even to live in the Bay Area, much less to be purchasing books for their classroom out of pocket.
Exactly.
And then you also mentioned that when they leave, they take their books with them. I mean, if they change jobs or even change
Yeah.
grades,
Right.
they're
Or schools.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we did have a teacher just a month ago who was retiring, and she generously donated all her books, her whole library to us. And actually, we're still pretty new and in good shape, and that
And
was
now they'll go to
wonderful.
somebody else's classroom
And now
library.
exactly. So that was fabulous. All right, so here's a before picture. We physically transformed the space with furniture, rugs, and murals. We purchased high-quality, durable, colorful library-grade furniture to create cozy spaces that invite students to stay, grab a book, and read. For each fully funded project, we spend approximately $3,000 to $4,000 on furniture and $11,000 to $12,000 on books, all of which is funded by donations, mostly from individual donors who believe in our mission.
There's another shot of that same library looking the other direction. All of that furniture you're seeing there was new. Like I said before, it didn't look bad, right? It looked okay, but then when you see it afterwards, you realize how much better it could have been, how much more inviting it could have been, how much more attractive it is now for an elementary school kid to come in and be like, yeah, I want to hang out here and read books.
Where's this
It's
located?
nice.
Yeah.
Where's this located?
This was one of the schools we served in the Alum Rock School District in East San Jose.
That's Dorsa, right?
Yeah,
Dorsa
that's Dorsa.
Elementary.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and here's another, this is one of my favorite before pictures. This library in Alum Rock in San Jose as well, they had a library assistant, 10 minutes, okay, and she was just overwhelmed. She was maybe 20 hours every other week. So the books weren't even getting on the shelf. They were just piles everywhere, just dirty. So on the project day, so this is on a Saturday from roughly 9 a.m. until 2 or 3 p.m., the volunteers paint vibrant literacy-themed murals on the library walls. This slide shows an example of the transformation of the library at Ben Painter Elementary School. And that is like, I think, one of our most incredible murals.
And one of our best transformations just overall of the library.
Because that was the one where the stuff was all stacked up, right? And like I said, in the financially struggling Alum Rock School District, they're having a hard time there. And they don't have, like, some districts have a lot of people in the community that want to help, like in East Palo Alto, but we're not seeing that in San Jose. So here's our after picture. And a teacher at the school told us, because we asked for surveys to be sent, like, how did we do? What do you think of everything? And one said that our students feel welcome and cozy in an energized environment with colorful furniture and murals. All right, so finally, we mobilized the community around the mission of improving school libraries. Over 300 volunteers have helped us on our project so far, and typically it's 50 to 70 volunteers per project. It's been going up lately. Lately I've been like, maybe too many, but it's wonderful because we have one room where everyone is sorting out the books, and we have one side of the room full of the brand new books, and we're putting the spine labels on and the barcodes, and that's where young kids can be really helpful. They can just put the Access Book stamp. I mean, there's something for everyone. And it's parents and children from the school and from the surrounding communities. And then in the other room, we paint murals. And that again, all ages can help. You've got parents, you've got students, we've got really small kids there. And it's a great way to bring together these communities. The young kids, from the school, they feel like they're invested in their library, and they're really excited to go back once it's ready for them to read books. We have a lot of repeat volunteers. We have a mother-daughter pair that has been to every project.
Every single one.
Yeah, so it's nice. And we provide lunch on the day of our project too. So in the middle of the day, everyone comes together in the cafeteria.
Get to know each other.
And it's really nice. So,
All right, so Linda mentioned that we're hoping to expand our work. Part of the reason why we do presentations like this one is not because we think that we need to do work in San Mateo schools. I think most of your schools are actually doing far better than the schools that we work in, and maybe don't qualify, although some of them might. But what we really need is to get the word out. Like when we were talking to Jeannie, people just don't know about us, so they aren't necessarily applying for our programs, right? And the more schools that apply, the more attracting we are to funders. So, like having that pipeline of like schools that want our work is a good way for us to then justify asking people for money to support our work. So it's a positive virtue cycle, right? So one of the things that we are looking for that you guys could help with if you are so inspired and interested is if you have connections to schools, or people who work in other areas who have connections to schools that could use this work, just helping us get the word out. Passing this on to your networks of people, like that we exist, that this is what we do. Please feel free to take our brochures, to take my card, to pass it on to other people. You can sign up for our newsletter. One of the other ways that people get involved is that you can actually volunteer for one of our projects. Like Linda mentioned, it's a Saturday project. It goes from 9 a.m. in the morning until about 2 p.m. in the afternoon. You can choose to be in the book room and be sorting and processing new books, or you can choose to be in the other room doing murals, or you can go back and forth. It's a really valuable experience. People bring their kids, their grandkids. It's a family thing that everybody can do together, and it's all around the service of building literacy for people who really need it. So it's a super great thing that you can do. Another way, of course, that you can get involved if you feel so inspired is that we always need more donations to make more projects possible. If you work for a company or an organization that does matching grants or that does donations to nonprofits, helping us get connections in that way would also be super valuable. So that's who we are and what we do, and we hope that it was at least interesting to you guys, and we look forward to maybe seeing one or two of you at our projects. Thank you so much for having us.
I think we have a question.
We have a question, yes, and questions, we are happy to take
I
those.
think you have a wonderful program. I'm really, it's exciting and very promising. My earliest memories as a child, my parents reading me Wizard of Oz. So I was a good reader, and that's about the only thing. I was a good reader, I still love reading. Now, I have a granddaughter who's going on 2 years, and her parents, we all read books, and just as a drop of a hat, we're reading a book. But she sees the phone, and I like to take pictures of it, so the minute she sees the phone, it's zeroed out.
Oh yeah, my 2-year-old doesn't even